So the area that I chose to focus on in my talk was a framework for teacher development, and it was called the Language for Academic Purposes framework. And in terms of the future of English language teaching, what I feel is most important is teachers being able to reflect on their own practice, to evaluate what they're doing against a framework of what might be useful for them to think about, but then most importantly, to put that into practice in their own context, working with other teachers, to collaborate and coach each other, to implement the teacher development in a contextual way rather than something that's separate from their own context. So it's more a reflective and evaluative tool for their own personal development. I think the most contentious or the most difficult aspect of this is the idea that teacher development needs to be contextual. It's not something that you can do simply from a course done outside your context, and that it needs to be implemented in your context, making use of what you've learned or what you've thought about, and that you as the teacher are the driver of your own professional development, that you're reflecting on what skills you have, what knowledge you have, and then working with other teachers to develop that. And I think that's contentious because many teachers don't see collaboration or observation of each other and then further work as something that they should be doing or would be allowed to do in their context. I think implementation of what I'm talking about is really simply a matter of reflecting on your own practice in terms possibly of a framework. There are many frameworks for teacher development out there, but thinking about it in terms of that framework, and then most importantly identifying peers, identifying colleagues that you can then work with to observe their lessons, to have them observe your lessons, and to develop your skills in your own context as an ongoing process. So the framework that I talked about in my presentation is called the Language for Academic Purposes framework. That's a draft at the moment, and it's based on the teacher development framework that was created by the Equals. So that's a resource that could be used. There are also other frameworks like the BALEAP framework for English for Academic Purposes, which is the British Association for Lecturers in English for Academic Purposes. One website that I would recommend strongly in terms of academic English is uefap.com, which is Using English for Academic Purposes as well. I think the biggest challenge in my own context, which is around academic language and academic education, is that there are more students coming into academic study from a wider range of socioeconomic levels, from a wider diversity of cultures, and that's putting a lot more pressure on the teachers to be able to respond to that range of needs. And one of the things that the framework is aiming to do is to be able to help teachers to understand what those needs for further development might be.